Sincere congratulations on Jurassic World.
Thank you very much, sir.
How do you think it all turned out?
You know, I'm very happy with this movie. I'm very proud of it, and it's you know, I can only judge my work on how much it achieves what I set out to do, and it does. So I hope other people enjoy it as well.
What did you want to achieve?
Yeah, I wanted to make something that that was, you know, thrilling and scary and emotional and warm and real and funny and a little romantic, and those are a lot of different tones to balance in one movie. Especially a science fiction movie. So to have them all coexist in a measured way and allow that to feel like entertainment, and then to also be, you know, about something was the goal, and I feel that it is those things.
And it was a heck of a burden to carry as well, reviving a dormant franchise after how many years? 15 years. Don't tell me you weren't anxious.
Well, you know, I'm a human. And so there were moments of anxiety and throughout the process, but I also had a almost childlike confidence that I could do it, and so I sort of marched forward as if I were a 12-year-old, which you imagine would make me more anxious, but strangely made me less.
We all know how you got the job by Steven Spielberg seeing your film Safety Not Guaranteed and loving the ending of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people understandably think that the reason why a relatively young director gets a job as big as this is because they're getting somebody who is eager to please and who knows what is required, because they're not just dealing with a film, they are dealing with a major corporate asset.
Well, you know, as I'm sure you can tell, having seen the film, it is a pretty staunchly anti-corporate in its themes, and you know, I don't know exactly how it got through, but what you're seeing is something that is a very personal film and deals with a set of ideas that I find you know, interesting and certainly relevant to our times. One of them being that the quest for profit at all costs is a dehumanizing process that can often create something that will come back to bite us, or in this case, eat us. And you know, that's not necessarily something that you would imagine would be included in a massive you know, corporate funded property, but due to the support of the studio to make the film I wanted to make, and also the support of Steven Spielberg, you know, we have something here that I hope feels like it has some soul.
It says a Colin Trevorrow film. How many hands are actually on the steering wheel?
Well, you know, I would like to think that I have my two hands firmly on the wheel, and then I have Steven Spielberg's hand on my shoulder, encouraging me to keep driving. And you know, Derek Connolly, I would put in the passenger seat in this scenario because he wrote this film with me, and I guess the studio can sit in the back. But you know, this movie is a collaboration between actually, you know, not just dozens or hundreds, but thousands of people ultimately who worked very hard to bring it to life. So I could only take full responsibility for its failure, but I would share the success of it with all of them.
I have to compliment you on the strength of the story. Given the type of film it is, the narrative in Jurassic World does hold together. I say that in contrast to a lot of big blockbusters.
Well, you know, I don't want to disparage other blockbuster films or
oh,
the
come on.
Of them. But look, I mean, you know, the reason why this film took so long to get off the ground is the one you're talking about. You know, Steven Spielberg has a great interest in story, and that's what he does best. And he would never allow something to go forward, certainly something he cares about this much at this point, if it did not have a solid story. So, you know, Derek and I wrote the first script very quickly because we were under the gun and under a lot of pressure. It also, that fact, informed us a little bit about what we could write about. You know, we had a release date that was already set, and they were going to make this movie whether it was a good idea or not. And that's, you know, that allowed us to think about why Jurassic World would exist in the first place. You know, the people have died. It had been a tragedy the last time they tried to make a theme park, but this time out, they're doing it one way or another because there's money to be made. And, you know, that was what started our story, and then what we did was populate it with characters that you could care about, who felt real, that you could relate to, and ideally dinosaurs who became characters unto themselves. And so by the end, instead of just seeing a bunch of visual effects going at each other, which we call, you know, computers fighting, we have characters that you care about who ideally are going to, you know, fight a battle that you'll be invested in.
Did you deliberately put into the film the theme about this being a franchise movie about franchise movies? Because one of the themes is giving the audience something bigger, something louder, something scarier than they've seen before. The film seems to be commenting on the franchise mindset itself. Was that deliberate?
It was, but not solely regarding films. I didn't want to make a movie about movies. I wanted to, like all good science fiction, hold up a mirror to us and our society and give us something that reflects where we're at right now. And so I would apply that idea, bigger, louder, with more teeth, to a great many things. We live in an upgrade culture in which we are not necessarily so impressed with anything anymore, much like the characters in this film are not impressed with dinosaurs. And so, that very idea that this urgency we have for to be entertained, and this sort of blasé attitude that we approach all of the many scientific and natural miracles that exist in the world. I thought that was something we could make a dinosaur movie about.
I love the character arc of the Bryce Dallas Howard character. She goes from your typical cliched screaming woman to basically being the savior of the film. In the hero shot, you've got her standing there in high heels. That was a deliberate costuming choice. Congratulations on it. Why did you do it?
It was a costuming choice that Bryce especially wanted to stick with, and I was a bit concerned as we got later on in the film that character, that she actually as an actress might get hurt as a person, because I care about her, but that also that actress would that character would face greater and greater challenges running in those heels. But this was about a person, and the fact that she was a woman is not necessarily, to me, the most important part. It could have been a man as well, but it was a human who was very corporatized, and is focusing completely on these animals as assets, and didn't really have a lot of humanity in her. And over the course of the film, mostly due to her interactions with these creatures, realizes they're very much living things, and I think finds her inner animal and becomes someone who's much more in touch with her humanity. And yet, throughout that, and even up to the point when she becomes a great hero at the end, she doesn't take off those heels. And I think that, as Bryce describes it, she feels that her high heels as a woman are a kind of shield for her, and something that she wouldn't take off either. So I went with her instincts on this. I feel very strongly that we don't need a character to surrender their femininity in order to be a badass action hero.
How much malicious fun do you have as a filmmaker putting a film like this together?
Lots.
Tell me a bit about that.
It's funny, man. I just read a review of someone from the UK, and they actually commented that, like, you can almost hear me cackling in the background as I'm causing all of this mayhem in the second half of this movie, and that was my favorite comment I've heard so far.
Why do people like having the bejesus scared out of them in a film like this?
I think we just get it so rarely. I personally don't love horror films. I don't love gory films, but I love scary films, and I think that, scary films are the best kind of shared experience for an audience. And I think comedies are another one. And when you go to something that startles a reaction out of you, and you get to be around a bunch of other people who are having that same reaction startled out of them, it's just a lot of fun. And I think going to a movie that allows us to have fun together as a group, whether you're with friends, whether you're with family, or whether you're with a bunch of strangers, is a gift. I love the audience, and I want them to leave their jobs or whatever's going on in their day and go into a theater and be transported to a place where they can just have the time of their lives for 2 hours.
When did monsters first enter your imagination?
Well, I don't consider them monsters. I consider them dinosaurs, and they're animals, and they existed here on the planet before, and I think that's one of the reasons why we get so fascinated with these films, with Jurassic Park in general. We knew they once existed, and in this case, we did get to create one monster. We made the Indominus Rex, and that's a monster, created out of that quest for profit that we were talking about, and I think that thing is scary because it's synthetic, historically, and in all the great villains that we love. And I did want to create an iconic villain. There is a synthetic element to them. Darth Vader is part robot, and Captain Hook, is missing a hand, and, Frankenstein isn't all organic. And so we wanted to make something that was an other, that the other dinosaurs would feel like real animals in comparison, and we would be able to get behind those dinosaurs, teaming up to take this thing down.
Given the new bars that were set with the original Jurassic Park in terms of visual effects, Colin, were you kind of a bit relaxed when making this film that you didn't want to set yourself too high a bar to meet?
You know, I was following instincts, from start to finish, and in certain cases I didn't necessarily know if it was going to work. I just had to believe that it was. You know, we called it faith-based filmmaking when we were on set. And I think in certain circumstances, you know, my lack of experience or knowledge of what could be done pushed us further. The people who did know what could be done would tell me that something was impossible, and I would say, nah, we can do it. And it's because I didn't know. But in the end, it pushed them to figure out a way to do something that was extremely complicated. Our final shot in this movie, that big, minute 10-second long tracking shot, is the most complex shot that ILM has ever rendered in their history, and yet they did it, and it's spectacular.
Did you hold off casting Chris Pratt until you guys were sure that Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be a hit rather than a flop?
Well, we had finished shooting this movie before Guardians of the Galaxy was released, so we didn't really have that luxury.
Okay.
No, I chose Chris Pratt again based on my instincts that he would be a great hero who is also an improvisational writer in his head, and I'm very attracted to improvisational actors. And you've seen them in my first film if you're one of the 7 people who saw it, and you'll see it in this film. In Jake Johnson and Chris Pratt and Lauren Lapkus, who's one of the best improvisers in Los Angeles. And when you get people like that, actors who are writers in their own heads, it really allows you to, even though this film was designed and it was written, it gives you another set of eyes to make sure that everything that's happening feels real and honest in the context of a movie that is this big in scope, and has such intense action. Having characters who feel real really create a balance.
And Colin, what happens to you after this?
I'm gonna, grow a long beard and chop some firewood back in Vermont where I live for a little while and figure out what's next. But I have a couple different kinds of stories that I'm really interested in telling, and maybe they're a little smaller or a little different than this. And I'm sure sometime soon I'll go back and do something that's a big entertainment like this again, because I had the time of my life doing it. Are you
looking for ideas for the next Jurassic World movie? Because I got one for you.
That's something I'm going to be involved in. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that this continues on. Assuming that people like this one and want another one.
Okay, here's an idea for you. Jurassic World. Here it is. Jurassic World: The Lawsuits.
Oh, so it's a courtroom drama.
Exactly.
Right. I'm sure that would make a clean billion easy.
The big grosses that films like this do make it possible for studios to make the smaller, chancier films. Isn't that true?
To a certain extent, yes. They don't always choose to use the money for that, but in theory it would. Yeah. I think more accurately, it allows the filmmakers who make them to take some risks if they so choose, and that's something I'm going to hope to find a balance with is continuing to take risks in the way that the directors that I really admire have done. They didn't go the easy way, and they kept making films that might fail, and I'm really interested in possible failure.